This is day 98, the courage to decline. I sat in a conference room last Thursday watching a team struggle with something that looked like enthusiasm, but felt more like panic. Someone had forwarded an email about a potential partnership. The opportunity sounded impressive. New market, new revenue stream, new visibility. The energy in the room was electric, but underneath it, I sensed something else. A quiet desperation to prove relevance by saying yes to everything that knocked on the door. This is the pattern I see most often in growing teams. Not the inability to execute, not the lack of talent, not even the absence of a strategy. It is the inability to say no. The word sits in their throats like a stone. They know they should say it. They feel the weight of too many commitments already crushing their calendar. But when the moment arrives, when someone presents the next shiny thing, they nod, they agree, they add it to the list, and the list grows longer while the work that actually matters gets pushed further into the margins. Saying no is not a skill most people are taught. We are raised to be helpful, cooperative, and responsive. We are rewarded for enthusiasm and punished by resistance. By the time we enter the workspace, the wiring is complete. Yes, it feels like progress. No feels like failure. Yes, it feels like leadership. No feels like obstruction. So we say yes when we should say no, and we wonder why nothing ever gets finished, why quality declines, and why the team burns out before the vision can materialize. The problem is not that people lack judgment. Most people know when something is a distraction. They can feel it in their gut. They see the misalignment. They understand that this new opportunity will pull resources away from the work that is already struggling for attention. But knowing is not the same as acting. Knowing requires courage to become useful, and courage in this context means the willingness to disappoint someone in the short term to protect something more important in the long term. I've watched teams destroy themselves not through incompetence but through overcommitment. They take on too much because they believe that saying yes demonstrates capability. They think that turning down an opportunity signals weakness or lack of ambition. They believe that the more they do, the more valuable they become. This belief is poison. It confuses motion with progress. It mistakes busyness for impact. It turns a team into a reactive system that responds to every stimulus without evaluating whether the response serves this mission. The organizations that endure build products people actually want, and creating lasting value are the ones that move slowly and commit deeply. They ignore most of the noise. They focus on a few key things. They say no constantly. They resist the pressure to react. They trust their vision more than they trust the news cycle. They build rather than respond. Teaching a team to say no is not about creating a culture of refusal. It is about creating a culture of clarity. When people understand what matters, they can articulate why it matters and know what success looks like and what it requires. Saying no becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. Because the no is not arbitrary. It is not personal. It is not a rejection of the person making the request. It is a commitment to something larger. This requires leadership to do the hard work first. You cannot ask a team to say no if you have not given them a clear yes. You cannot expect people to focus if you have not defined what focus actually means. You cannot demand discipline if you have not modeled it yourself. Clarity flows downward. Confusion does too. If leadership chases every trend, reacts to every competitor move, and pivots with every article, the team will learn nothing is sacred and everything is negotiable. I have learned to separate incoming information into three categories: information, signals, and commitments. Most things belong in the information category. These are items that are interesting, contextual, and worth monitoring. They provide background. They help me understand the landscape, but they do not demand action. I file them. I might revisit them occasionally. I watch to see if they develop into something more. Some things move into signal category. These are patterns I see repeated over time. Multiple sources, multiple contexts, sustained attention over weeks or months. These are likely to become future projects we develop. They deserve more attention. They warrant deeper analysis. They might eventually justify a commitment, but not yet. Not until the pattern is clear and the direction is specific. Very, very few things make it to the commitment category. These are the genuinely worthwhile items, the kind of work that takes months of effort to accomplish, the type of work that requires focus, resources, and sustained attention, the kind of work that cannot be interrupted by the next trending article without serious cost. When a team understands this structure and sees leadership applying it consistently, they begin to internalize it. They start asking better questions. Is this information a signal or a commitment? Does this align with what we already said matters? Does this serve the people we are trying to serve? Does this move us closer to the outcome we defined, or does it pull us sideways into someone else's agenda? The hardest part is not the framework. The hardest part is the social pressure. When someone presents an opportunity, they are often excited. They have done work to bring it to the table. They believe it matters. Saying no feels like dismissing their effort, questioning their judgment, or rejecting their contribution. This is where most teams break down. They say yes to preserve harmony. They say yes to avoid conflict. They say yes because no feels too hard. But harmony built on overcommitment is not harmony. It is a slow collapse disguised as cooperation. The team that cannot say no eventually say nothing at all because they are too exhausted to speak. The leader who cannot disappoint in the short term will disappoint catastrophically in the long term when nothing gets finished and the mission fails. I've learned to say no with respect. I acknowledge the effort, I recognize the intent, I explain the reasoning, I connect the decision back to the shared vision. I make it clear that no is not about the person, it is about the priority, and I do this consistently enough that people begin to trust it. They understand that when I say yes, I mean it, and when I say no, I'm protecting something that we all agree that matters more. This does not happen overnight. It requires repetition. It requires modeling. It requires willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. It requires saying no to things that sound good, feel urgent, or come with social pressure. It requires trusting that the work you are already doing is more important than the work that someone else thinks you should be doing based on an article they might have read this morning. The team that learns to say no is not a team that lacks ambition. It is a team that understands the cost of distraction. It is a team that knows what it is building and why it's building it. It is a team that protects its focus because focus is the only resource that cannot be replaced. Time can be bought, talent can be hired, money can be raised, but focus, once lost, is nearly impossible to recover. So if you want a team that can execute, start by teaching them to decline. Give them a clear vision, define what success looks like, show them what matters and why. Model the discipline of saying no. Protect them from the tyranny of the urgent. Let them see that saying no is not a failure of ambition. It is a commitment to something larger. It is the courage to disappoint in the short term, to deliver in the long term. It is the only way to build something that lasts.